When you think of some of the best jig fishermen in professional tournament fishing, you think of Denny Breyer, Greg Hackney, just to name a few. But right now, we have a young angler named Tyler Williams. Tyler right now might be considered the best jig fisherman right now in tournament fishing. Guys, we're going to go in depth why this young 24-year-old, I think right now, is considered to be the top jig fisherman in professional tournament fishing, guys. Welcome to the Fishing Coach YouTube channel. Jimmy Easterling, I go by Coach E, guys, so thank you for tuning into today's video, okay? I love fishing a jig. I grew up fishing a jig. I have right here many of jigs of different types. And guys, we're going to talk about the 3 reasons of me just watching Tyler and fishing footage on Bassmaster Live, listening to him on podcast, and I want to share the 3 things of why I think he is the best jig fisherman right now. Guys, leave me a comment what you think. I know he's one of the young guys, and when you think of the young anglers, you think of pinging a minnow, you think of this, that, you know, and all this stuff. But guys, Tyler is throwing a jig and winning on a jig. One thing I started recognizing Tyler's when he fished the Opens. 2023, he fished the Opens and qualified as one of the 9 through that crazy EQ gauntlet, okay? And he did a lot of damage with a jig, okay? And then this last year, his first year as a rookie on the Bassmaster Elite Series, he finished 11th in Angler of the Year, had a couple of really good finishes and a great year, and a jig was his player, okay? Now, me real quick, okay, guys, my history with the jig. I grew up and a jig was one of my biggest tools to catch bass throughout the entire year. Now, this was days, guys, where if you watch my channel a lot and you know I've talked about it, there's old footage even with me and Johnny Schultz on Fish the Moment at Lake Ouachita, catching fish on a jig, both dragging and swimming it on a day where it barely got over 32 degrees, which I'm standing in right now, and it's 25 degrees, okay? And guys, I wanted to do a lot of this. I wanted to do this video on the water. I wanted to do the first part in the water, and the second part I wanted to fish, but I had boat problems that day, and it just is what it is. I didn't get it done, so here we are here. So just so you know, I'm going to make another video on this while I'm on the water. If you guys like it, leave me a comment, let me know. But guys, I fished a jig a lot without live scope, just so you guys know. Like, that was one of my main tools without live scope. Now, in the last 2 years, I've gone away from the jig, but Tyler is inspired me to pick it back up. And I've used the jig for other ways with forward facing. You know, I always swam a jig in grass before live scope, but since I've done it some, you know, and I've swam it over brush piles, but I always dragged it deep and fished a jig. So guys, I have a lot of experience with a jig, okay? Now let's go into the 3 things why Tyler right now is what I think the best jig fisherman, okay? And I share the jig, guys, because a jig is a tool that it's been around forever, okay? A lot of guys struggle with the jig. A lot of guys have success with the jig. There's still stuff with me I want to learn about the jig. There are anglers I know that are older than me, more experienced, that are really good at the jig that I like to learn from, even some here in Central Arkansas, okay? So guys, let's go into it with the jig, okay? The first one is, all right? The first one that I think he's really good at the jig is he commits to it. Guys, he shared on a podcast, okay, and this is his mindset. He shared on the Juice podcast, the Logan Martin event, okay, which was a big minnow event. Spotted bass place, had some largemouth as they call it, but the minnow took that event over, but people kind of was forgetting that there were fish caught with a jig. Tyler's mindset going in that event was, how can I catch 10 largemouth on a jig? And he said 10 due to getting the check. You know, the first 2 days of the event, he was trying to find a way in his mindset of practice. How can I catch 10 bass on a jig to get to day 3 and then possibly day 4? I think he got 5th in that event, guys. And during that tournament, when you're watching, he had 3 rods on the deck, a jig, and he had 1 spinning rod, which I never saw him throw from the footage. But he committed to the jig. And during that event, he shared on the podcast, he's flipping a dock with his jig, and Greg Hackney is out in the middle of the lake trying to scope. And that right there tells me that Tyler's better than Greg with the jig. Right now he is. And I love Greg Hackney. I'm a fan of Greg Hackney. But that's just the mindset Tyler has. He goes in these tournaments committing to it. And guys, he's pretty simple with the jig. Let's talk about that. So he commits to the jig, number 1, and he's simple with the jig. He throws this rubber jig. It's called greenfish tackle, little rubber jig, something like that. And he shared where he throws the 3/4 ounce majority of the time with the Yamamoto flapping hog. And you see a lot of events. he don't really have like 10 rods on the deck. He has a couple rods. He keeps it simple. Tyler has noted how he's lazy and how he doesn't want to keep bending over to pick up rods, which is, I mean, he says this, not me. I mean, like, this is what he has said on multiple podcasts. So he wants to be simple with the jig. And so he has this jig he likes. He throws his color. He has it down with the Yamaha Flapping Hog. He talks about how he can skip this thing and cast it out. And so that's something that's pretty interesting to me. But he commits to it. So when he goes in these tournaments, he's trying to figure out how can I catch fish with a jig. So for you, there's always this, what's the best bite? What's going to win? But for him, it's how can I catch fish with a jig? What am I going to do? And that's his strength, okay? And so that's the first thing. The second thing, why Tyler is really, really good, okay, with the jig, all right? The second thing is he's really good with his electronics. And I say that as in when he's practicing and preparing. Now, as you're listening to this, think of you as a weekend angler and think of you if you don't get to fish or practice 3 days before an event. But what he is really good at, guys, is using his side imaging, down imaging to find cover on the structure or finding the bass on the structure, and then he knows what he's looking for, because what he is going to use his equipment for is to help him be efficient, which we're going to go into number 3 here in a minute. But he is really good at practice. And when I say practice, he's going to use his side imaging, down imaging, once again, to go over these brush piles, to go over the rock spots on the points or the humps, the drains, the saddles, if there's grass in the lake. He's using that. Then he's using his forward-facing sonar to see the fish there and then see how they react. So he's really good in practice, okay? So he knows I'm not going to go throw a jig and set the hook on all of them. He is marking a lot of spots. There's a lot of good jig fishermen I know that will fish a lot of brush piles during a tournament or fish a lot of grass spots during the day. And that's one thing he's doing. Now, he's also fishing docks. He's also fishing, certain pieces of area. But the second reason why he's really good with it is he's good at the electronics, okay? Now, number 3, this is the big thing with I think, on him, and this is where we can get better as you as a weekend angler or a tournament angler, because like I said, he fishes a lot. That's one thing about Tyler. We're going to get number 3. He fishes a lot, okay? These professional anglers fish a lot, but the young guys really fish a lot. I think I heard one podcast, he fishes over 300 days a year, 270, 280. He mentioned how he fished on Thanksgiving, he fished on Christmas, his family's from Maine, he's traveling. There you go. He's fishing more than me and you. And I fished 180 days last year of the year. But number 3 is he's efficient with the jig, okay? So he uses his jig, and I know here, like I have a few jigs. Like I got the old mock jig that Jordan Lee won a classic on. I have the old hybrid structure jig. This is the 6-inch hybrid jig that I like to swim and drag. My old Strike King jig here. I got the V&M Baits one that I like. This little hybrid. This is my old Strike King one that I used to throw. And but what he does is as efficient is he's using his forward-facing sonar to make the right cast. He's making 1 to 2 casts in brush piles. He's making 1 to 2 casts on stumps. He is being efficient and using his time on the water wisely. Before forward-facing sonar, when I would fish a jig in areas, it might be 30 minutes to 40 minutes on some big points, or you might take 15, 20 minutes around a brush pile. Now he is going 1 to 2 cast or 3 cast, okay? And then when he's using practice, which kind of goes back to number 2, he knows which brush and rock spots, stumps have the good ones, and he's going to go make his efficient cast at them, get that jig as close as he can to it. Now, at times he's not always watching. You see he's looking at his live scope. He's making sure his jig is there in the sweet spot. And he's not watching them always eat it because they're on the bottom with it, right? I mean, you can see them go down and stuff, but he is making sure he's in the zone. And then after 1 or 2 casts, moving to the next one. And so you as a weekend angler, if you're fishing a jig and you do have forward-facing sonar, you can use it to make yourself more efficient. And when he's fishing shallow, he is really good at casting. I'm going to say that right now. The dude's good at casting. He's making the right cast. Now, he has some accidents here and there, as I've seen on live, and you guys have too. We're all fishermen, and we're not perfect. But he's being efficient with the jig. So for you, are you being efficient? I know one thing he's done, and this is what I've done lately as well, guys, is here's the Core Tackle swim jig. I love this swim jig, okay? And I've been using it more with me for swimming it over submerged vegetation on my lakes, okay? And that's one thing that Tyler it's kind of made me want to get a jig back out, okay? So I have my football jig that I'm going to throw. That's the Fish the Moment offshore jig. I have a V&M football jig I throw as well. But this core tackle swim jig, which is similar to the core tackle tush hook that has the weight distributed through here. And you see I have a freeloader on there because I'm still shaking it at times because I'm shaking the swim jig and this thing is rocking. So what I'm going back to doing and trying to get better at is I'm throwing this jig because our lakes, they love a swim jig and they love a big jig. As I mentioned earlier, some old Wausau footage we have filmed before live scope. We're swimming a jig in grass blind, as you can say back in the day, blind, and Fishman would eat it because that swim jig, this big jig profile right here, imitates brim. Okay, it imitates, it can also imitate I want to say not just brim, at times it can be crawfish, okay, as well. But our lakes don't have as much bait fish, and there's a lot of fish that eat the brim and crawfish. I'm throwing it, guys, on a level NGX 7.2 medium heavy fast. I have a 7.3 medium heavy fast as well. I'm throwing this one out here on 12-pound test. Now I will throw it like when I'm doing a football jig and stuff, 16 to 20, but I'm throwing that on 12 right now just because the water's light and it's clean, and I'm trying to see if that's shaking, if it matters. I'm just doing some testing with it. Like I said, but I'm fishing this thing, and that submerged grass, guys, is 10 to 15 foot, okay? And you don't got to watch on live scope, like I said, but I'm watching just to see how fish react. There's times I'm swimming that thing over grass and fish are coming out of the grass, and then they're checking it out or eating it. Swimming over brush piles too is Tyler at the Lake Fork event. He mentioned at the Lake Fork event, people were catching him on the minnows, and he's like, I'm not going to catch him on the minnow. I'm going to swim a jig. And he swam a jig and caught him with 22-pound test. You see him boat flipping 7-pounders and stuff. So he decided to do that instead of shaking the minnow. Now, guys, I'm cold. Let me know what you think about it. Let me know your thoughts on the jig and any tips, recommendations you got, guys. Appreciate you. Thank you for tuning in to the Fish Coach YouTube channel. Now, let's get into the fake juice. Guys, welcome to the Fake Juice. It's cold, okay? I was prepared, but I'm kind of not prepared. But I want to just kind of wing this one, okay? A little bit of motivation, just a little bit. I know we've talked about. If you've watched all my videos and stay up to date, I talk about the ups and downs of life. Well, I did share recently how we had some exciting news, some unexpected news, and that was that we're having baby number 3. Okay, so we're excited. I have a 3-year-old, a 1-year-old, and now we're about to have another one. But let's get into another twist that I did not see coming, okay, was my motor blown. I'm looking at my motor right now. The camera's in the boat, my truck's right here, but I just had my power head blew up in my personal boat that I use. So in 2 weeks, I found out, hey, baby 3, and then boom, no motor. And guys, as you know, I fish. This is my source of income. This pays the bills. I guide. Now I do a lot of on-the-water lessons when I'm in other people's boats, but March is coming up and I have a few trips in my boat. And luckily, I think for me right now, I have very good friends, and I work with Future Marine, and we're gonna get this taken care of, and we're going to. I might be in another boat. I might be in another demo coming up. But I've had other friends and people offer me boats to use, and I really, really do appreciate that. But what I'm getting to is, guys, I was not expecting 2 big events. The first one, of course, is a child, and we're excited, okay? And I know how kids happen, okay? I mean, we're happy. We love the kids right now, and we're having a good time raising them, and they're teaching us a lot, and we're learning a lot from it. So you have that, and then the motor blown. I really didn't need that right now. And there's always times in life where you really don't. I could probably never really need that, right? You know what I'm saying? I say that. Y'all guys don't either. But why at this time did that happen? And I was down. I've been down, but I've not been as down as you would think. I really know my faith is strong enough. I know everything's going to work out in a year or 2 or so. I'm going to see. I do have decisions right now. Decisions what I do with this boat. The motor, I know what I'm going to do with the boat. I'm not getting rid of the boat. But guys, so, because I can't buy another boat right now. So I'm right now in this situation. I've been praying and asking for wisdom, guidance on what to do, okay? And I've not asked God why yet. I say yet because that might be coming. But I know I'm going to get through this, and I'm faithful enough that, like, hey, this happened for a reason. We had some other things happen, okay, in the last year I'm not going to share, to where, for example, like, we had some of our bills drop. Our health insurance dropped in price, and there's some things that we've had that's dropped, and then all of a sudden this happened. So anyway, guys, just so you know, like right now it seems like, I know for me, like, oh, all this is happening, but I've been pretty, steady through it. Oh, it was my birthday when the motor, my motor blew up. How about that? It's my birthday, so happy birthday to me. So anyway, guys, I'm trying to be in good spirits on it to help you guys out. If any of you watching right now and you just think the world's falling apart or your life's falling apart, guys, there's somebody there, which is our Lord Savior, who is there for you. And like I said, it's when He's came and died for you so you could live and then and live in a life of sin, and He's there to save you. I mean, that's what I know at times we hear that, but it's really crazy to think that. I'm just not gonna lie. Like, to me, it's just kind of like, wow, that like this is for real. So I'm sharing this with you guys that, if you're somewhere right now watching this and you're in the middle of the valley, hey, it's going to be okay. Let's get through this. As I'm going to get through this, we're going to figure it out. Appreciate you guys. Thanks for watching today's video, and we'll see you on the next one.